Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at Orbeetle, a card which seems to do the kind of thing that Pokemon doesn't want us doing. It's a little bit weird. Let me explain. Now, straight off the bat, Orbeetle is a Stage 2. Being a Stage 2 is kind of a bit rubbish and annoying. It's hard to actually get rolling. The good news is we've got cards like Quick Ball coming, which is going to make it easier to get those Stage 2s out. But please do be aware that it's a bit of a pain. With that out of the way, the basics aren't looking good. You got 130 HP, which is lower than we'd like. Although, to be fair, right, Gengar's sitting there with a frankly embarrassing 110, so at least it's better than Gengar. And we've got a retreat cost of 1. Now, that is quite good. You can use U-turn board to get free retreat. But we don't like the weakness to Welder. Well, it's a weakness to fire, but Welder's everywhere, so you might as well call it a weakness to Welder. It's not a great thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a great thing. Welder decks are everywhere. Welder decks will make a mockery of your weakness to fire. And you are a grass Pokemon, which on the one hand is pretty good, but on the other hand, a lot of the grass tricks tend to revolve around healing. Things like Life Forest Prism Staff, things like the Shaman from Lost Thunder. And healing isn't exactly a huge amount of good when you're being KO'd in one hit. But you do get Netball that helps you search out your basic Pokemon that are grass and your basic energy that is grass, so it could be worse. As for hitting for weakness, it's a little bit upsetting to note that in Sword and Shield, water Pokemon are going back to a lightning weakness, see Lapras V as an example, but you are still getting those fighting Pokemon that were ground in the video game, and rock, think things like Stonejourner V as a nice little example. But really the main attraction here is the ability. We don't love the basics, but we do love the ability. And our translation comes from the lovely David Hockman over at limitlesstcg.com/translations because, you know, David is lovely and we love him. And what the ability does is once during your turn, you may look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck and put them back in any order you like. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very fun ability indeed. You get to mess with your opponent's top deck. Now, it's not always quite that good because, of course, you're only looking at the top 3 cards, putting them back in any order. To use a very crude example, if your opponent really desperately wants one more custom catcher to win the game, because they've got one in hand, and you look at the top 3 cards of their deck and they are custom catcher, custom catcher, custom catcher, that's kind of annoying. But what if they're not? What if they're custom catcher, basic energy, random evolution Pokemon? Well, now all of a sudden, instead of your opponent being about to top deck the one card they need in order to win, your opponent is not going to draw it. Like, seriously, if there is one custom catcher left in their deck, this turn you make it the 3rd card in their deck. And next turn you make it the 3rd card in their deck. And the turn after you make it the 3rd card in their deck. And you just keep putting it out of their reach. Now, of course, sooner or later your opponent is going to just draw it, because they're going to have a supporter. Even something like How is just going to be able to draw 3 cards and draw into it, and how are you going to feel when they do? But you can slow them down and you can hurt them, and that's the key here. Slowing your opponent down just enough that they're not able to do what they want to do. Now, initially, I misread this ability as you can rearrange the top 3 cards of your deck, and that would be a lot better. All of a sudden, Zacian V would have an ability which was pretty much guaranteed to fire. You look at the top 3 cards of your deck, attach any metal energy to the Pokemon, it would be great. Because you could basically look and see if it was going to work or not. It was really nice, but hey-ho. Similarly, Torkoal's got an attack which does an extra 90 damage when you discard the top card of your deck, if it is a fire energy, and here if a fire energy was in the top 3, you could guarantee it would happen. We've still got Oranguru that can help with those abilities. Oranguru lets you swap a card in your hand for the top card of your deck, so you can put an energy of the right type on top of your deck to guarantee it, but it is a little bit upsetting if I'm honest with you. Hey-ho. The point here is that rearranging the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck is not always going to end up being that useful unless you're playing a disruption deck. You see, we had a card that's just been banned in the expanded format, Chip Chip Ice Axe. Chip Chip Ice Axe lets you look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, put one on top, and shuffle the other 2 back in. And on its own, it doesn't see a huge amount of play, but in a Gardevoir and Sylveon deck, it's amazing. Because Gardevoir and Sylveon has a really nice GX attack, whereby if you've got 6 Fairy Energy on, you do 200 damage, and your opponent shuffles their entire hand into their deck. At which point, you don't need to know what's in their hand. You can just go, you know what? You got nothing in your hand. I'm going to feed you garbage using Chip Chip Ice Axe. Well, Orbeetle does the same thing. And there is actually a really nice combo to be had here with Lavender Town. Because Lavender Town is a stadium that lets you, once during your turn, look at your opponent's hand. So here, you're not looking at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck and trying to do the maths on what they've got on the board and what they're likely to have in their hand. No, use Lavender Town, look at their hand, then you know what the good cards and bad cards to draw are, and when you've looked at their hand and decided that, then you can use Orbeetle's ability and make sure they draw a card they don't want. If they've already got 2 basic energy in hand, feed them another basic energy. If you know they haven't got a supporter, play keep away using a supporter. If you know they've got a custom catcher in hand, don't let them get the second custom catcher, etc, etc. This can be good. And as a side note, if you are playing this, I really do think most of the time Lavender Town's going to be great. But then we've got all of those hand disruption decks. The kind of decks that they're banning a bunch of cards in Expanded to try and avoid. Decks where you're using cards like Jesse and James, or Mars, to go, right, now you're getting 0 cards in hand. Where you're just trying to discard cards from their hand until they literally have a 0 card hand. Maybe you're using something fun like Honchkrow GX to discard 2 cards from their hand. And there's a bunch of cards we've got at the moment, although many of them are getting banned in Expanded. But what you can do here is just make sure that your opponent does not draw what they need. You wreck their hand, and then you guarantee that they're not drawing the cards that they need to draw out of it. It's so much fun. The problem is this is a Stage 2 Pokemon. And that is going to be annoying, because a lot of these decks you really want to be trying to find room for stuff like Crushing Hammer to get rid of their energy, Custom Catcher to drag them into the active, Mars and Lieutenant Surge's strategy to play extra supporters, all kinds of things of that nature. And then it gets really awkward because you might not actually have space for a Stage 2. But if you're playing a Disruption deck, this is a fun one to have, a really fun one to have. Now there is an attack here, and the attack actually could be kind of useful as well. 1 grass, 1 psychic energy, 90 damage base, 30 more for each psychic energy attached to this Pokemon. So you pile psychic energy on, and you smash. And in terms of piling psychic energy on, let's not forget we've got Malamar still, that can pile psychic energy on with the best of them. I don't know how much I love this. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? You pile psychic energy on, you smash. But you have to get both grass and psychic energy on. And then you're really talking 1 grass and 3 psychic till you're up to 190, which is where you start getting 2 prize Pokemon. Your GXs like Blacephalon, in your face fire Pokemon, or your V Pokemon, and more Pico as an example. I like the art on that card. The point is, you need to get quite a lot of energy on before you actually get to big KO territory here. But it could be quite nice in a psychic deck to have a grass Pokemon hitting another weakness. But then we're talking about using it as a tech. And having and when we're talking about techs, right, we want basic Pokemon single energy. So to go back to Blacephalon, one of the best techs against that is Tapu Fini. And what we love about Tapu Fini, basic Pokemon single colorless energy. Well, all of a sudden here we've got Stage 2 Pokemon, many energy, including 2 different types. No. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, as much as I think the second attack, or the only attack, the second thing, is really interesting, I don't think it's going to see a huge amount of play. But it doesn't need to. It's the ability. That is what we like here, and that's why I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wossies. We don't give half Wossies, that would be barbaric. On a basic Pokemon, this ability would be busted, and I'd be considering giving it 5 Wossies. On a stage 2, it's too awkward to tech in easily, but it really is good when you can get it working. But I'd like to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts and be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in, but it's still a lot of fun. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.